A four-stroke top end can last anywhere from 5 hours to 5,000 hours. So how do you know what to expect when planning a top end rebuild? Well, after riding for 20 plus years and maintaining dozens of bikes, there are 3 questions that I like to ask that will give you a better idea of how long you can expect. 1, what kind of riding will you be doing? How are you riding? Are you a beginner or a casual trail rider that's going to be riding at lower speeds, low to moderate RPM range? No matter what bike you're on, if you're riding very casually, hardly ever going wide open, the engine is going to last a lot longer because the lower the RPM, the less miles are being put on your engine, because every revolution is putting a little bit of wear and tear on it. Because when you're averaging, let's say, 5,000 RPM for 20 hours compared to 10,000 RPM for 20 hours, that lower RPM is going to put about half the wear and tear on it. So if you're an expert level racer, or you're riding a pit bike where you're just whining the engine out all the time, it's not going to last nearly as long. Number 2, what kind of bike are you riding? Is it a air-cooled 4-stroke trail bike? They generally last a lot longer because they don't produce as much power. And when there's less power, there's less heat. And when there's less heat, it's not going to put as much friction or wear and tear on the engine, because the more power you produce, the more heat it produces, and heat is the enemy of engines. It wears parts out faster. As opposed to like a 250 liquid-cooled motocross bike, you're generally going to be riding it at a higher RPM, or you're just going to be making more horsepower at the same RPM, so it's going to be putting more wear and tear on the top end, meaning you're going to have to rebuild it more often than a slower air-cooled trail bike. Number 3, which might be the most important, is how often are you changing the oil and air filter? No matter what bike you're riding, no matter where you're riding, if you're riding it low on oil or you're running too long, the oil's getting black and sludgy, it's not going to lubricate the engine as well. And on a 4-stroke, where the camshaft or cams are at the top end, they're the first ones to lose oil or have the least amount of lubricity, so that they're more likely to heat up faster, they're more likely to cause damage in the cylinder head. So if you're running it low on oil, or if it's black and dirty and it's not lubricating as well, the top end is going to suffer first. And it might not even run different until it's too late. And then the air filter, if you're letting it go too long, more and more dirt is going to get sucked into the engine, and when it hits those metal parts, the valves, the piston and rings, trying to burn up that dirt, it causes extra friction, and that's what wears out this parts faster. So if you're riding in a lot of sand or mud, you're going to have to change the air filter a lot more frequently. Just for the sake of throwing some rough numbers out there, an air-cooled trail bike like this, if you're properly maintaining it, if you're just a trail rider, like novice or intermediate level, you can probably get 500 to 1,000 hours pretty easily without touching anything in the top end. Whereas like a 250F motocross bike, if you're an intermediate or expert level rider, then you're probably going to be a lot harder on the parts, so you're probably going to need to do a top end every 20 to 50, maybe 100 hours tops, depending on how hard you ride it. So how do you know when the top end needs to be rebuilt? Well, if it's taking a lot longer to kickstart or to use the electric starter to get it going, whether it's hot or cold, that's one sign that the top end might need to be rebuilt now or soon. And if you want to know 12 more common signs that your 4-stroke might need a top end rebuild, you should check out this video right here. I'm Kelly Fagan from MX Hideout. Ride safe, have fun.